don't think that you have to invent the entire corporate structure getting started out. Like, you just need a client. You don't need a fancy business card. You don't need fancy name tags. You don't need rent in some places. It's like, just get your first client, focus on that, focus on the client experience, get that really fine-tuned, make sure that you have even a product. Or one thing that we found when we first started is what we thought we were going to go after. And once we really got out in the marketplace, like, it got adjusted. So get out and talk to people, tell them what you think that you're solving and what problem it is that you're solving, and see if that's even a problem that's really neat or really out there. So I think doing your homework and just making sure that you scale affordably, and don't think that you've got to have everything to impress everyone. You just need one client and it will go from there.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Nicole Grinnell. And Nicole grew up in a small business family. So parents owned a small business, and she worked with them since about 10 years old, went off to high school, and then did I think it's an ROP program with Intel, then went to college, and then started working for a pilot company, and then went into corporate America and did executive assisting, and then shifted over to being staying home with kids for about 8 years. Did that or some small jobs at home, including a VA during that period of time. And then about 6 years ago, started her current business. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Nicole.
Thank you, Devin. It's great to be here. I'll have you write the foreword to my book. You did a great job there. So
Absolutely. I have the innate ability to take everybody's lives and condense it into 30 seconds. So.
That's perfect.
So now I gave the 30-second version, but why don't we rewind and unpack a little bit and tell us a little bit about how the journey got started growing up in a family running a small business?
Yeah, so I come from long lines of, closet workaholics, and we all love to work. And my parents actually started a medical laboratory. They went on to sell to LabCorp, so that type of space. And I was about 10 when they started, and so I learned really quickly, not only just a great work ethic and how to work, but I think it's really what propelled me into where I am now, in that I had a very unique seat of sitting alongside my parents' employees and hearing things that they needed and their complaints and their work environments and all the things that the employees have. And then also sitting at the dinner table with my parents and understanding a business owner's stress and things that employees don't always have access to, and an understanding of what it is running a business. So it was this really great experience for me to understand both sides. And I think that's what's made me very empathetic and understanding on all sides, and also being able to support business owners to help them see those things. And likewise on the employee side. So I did transfer that into corporate world, worked there. So got a lot of that structure and organization from that world. And then it's kind of put me where I am today.
No, that's awesome. So now, before we jump to where we're at today, so you grew up in the entrepreneurial family, got that experience, helped work in the family business, and growing up in that environment. Now, after high school, you went off, and if I remember right, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it an ROP programs that we did with Intel, or walk us through a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so Intel has a huge plant in Folsom, California, which is where I was from, and they had a great I actually definitely had that moment with the teacher, kind of seeing possibility in me and realizing like, hey, you really have a business acumen, you should try this. And that was my first executive assisting job. I supported part of a marketing team there, and was just supporting in an EA role in my junior and senior year of high school. And that was kind of the first corporate world. I'd grown up, in my parents' world, where it was very flying by the seat of your pants, and, and it was just get it done. And so both really gave me a good hybrid of that, because I think you do need both of those as an entrepreneur. You can't get too set in your ways and, well, this is the process and this is how we do things. It's like some days you just got to throw that out the window, and this is what we got to do to get this deal done. So having that nimbleness, I think, has made me very effective in my own business.
No, makes good sense. So you did that, got experience even at a younger age, or almost executive assistant for doing working at Intel, which is a great company. And then you went off to college. Now, what did you study in college?
So I just got a business degree. I loved being an executive assistant. I really didn't know what I was going to do. There was a time I even thought that I might go into teaching business classes because I really did love the teacher that I had in high school. And I thought, well, maybe that's what I'll do. But again, I started working for Pilot Travel Centers at their corporate office in Knoxville. That's where I went to school. And that was just amazing experience. And I found really quickly, though, what would happen is I would apply for an EA job. And really within like that 6 to 8 months period, people would go, oh, you can do so much more. This is no longer like setting up lunches and travel. I need you to review financials. And you know what? Can you help with the marketing? And so I started picking up all these skills just very quickly and was thrown into that. And so it really gave me a well-rounded experience and approach. And so even when I started the company, and it was a lot of the buzzword was like a virtual assistant, to me, an assistant is all of those things. It's a catch-all for whatever the person that you're supporting needs to have done. And so I realized that we needed to do some rebranding there, and we really don't even use the term virtual assistant, although a lot of our people are remote, because we really are all operational functions, and that's what business owners need.
So now you get in, you get the degree, you get the business background experience, and then coming out of college, I think you went and worked for a pilot company. Is that right?
So it was the Pilot Travel Center. So not
Okay.
Pilot as an airplane, but Pilot
Gotcha.
as a company name. Yeah.
All right, got it confused. I was thinking
Yeah, that's
pilot
okay.
as
It's
an
very easy to
airplane.
do. Yeah. Yeah.
And so now, how long did you? So I think you worked at the pilot, not the or pilots as an air, but the pilot travel company. How long did you stay in America, or in you said corporate America, and kind of worked for executive assistants? So walk us through just a little bit of kind of over what span of time that was, and what or how that took place.
Yeah, so I worked there like 2000 till I think 2005. Then I had my children, so I actually stayed at home. During that time, there really wasn't a lot of like hybrid, fractional, remote, anything like that. So I kind of just took a step back and was out of the workforce for really about 8 to 9 years until they both got in school. And then I went into supporting a C-level and an owner of a payment processing company, local in Atlanta. And that was amazing. And he was very, very good to me and allowed me to still be with my kids. And it was a really good opportunity for me that, quite honestly, I didn't think I would get back into. My game plan at that time was like, I love Starbucks. I'll go work at Starbucks and get some free coffee, and that'll be the end of it. But definitely had some other opportunities presented to me, and he retired. And so I thought, well, I'll be a virtual assistant. That's kind of the next stepping stone. And that's really where things started clicking in, because within about 2 weeks, I had so many business owners going, could you just do 5 hours a week of social media? Could you just watch my inbox? Could you answer my calls? I'm missing leads. And I realized, okay, this is actually a need and it's not being filled. And we've got this gap. We've got a gap from traditional staffing and employment and what is just a virtual assistant at the time. And that's really the gap that we stepped into and said, okay, tell me what you need on the back end. And they would say, I don't have anyone watching my books. I need bookkeeping, and no one's answering my phones. I can't get to all my emails. I have no social media presence. And then we would bring in people for those roles who had that experience, but were working on a fractional level that business owner could afford.
No, it makes perfect sense. Sounds like it was a good path to take on. Now, I think in the interim or after that or during that period, you also had some kids and stayed at home for a period of time and raised them, and maybe did that alongside of it.
Yep. So I did that kind of prior to starting the company. The company's 7 years old now. So my kids are 17 and 16. So they were 9, 10 when all of that was going on. So now I'm in the boat where, in fact, I'm literally seeing notifications go through. My kids are logged on online, helping with the business right now, getting contacts imported and packages mailed out. So I'm now at full circle where my kids are working and helping grow the business. And so it's been really rewarding.
No, it sounds like a great place to be. Now, just rewinding or back just a little bit, just to go back to before you started the current business and when you were at home with the kids, and maybe just walk through what was the motivation of, taking a step back. Was it, hey, I wanted to raise the kids, I wanted to take a break, I wanted to be there, I wanted to, kind of walk us through just kind of what made you step out of the, the working world, and then we'll dive in a little bit about stepping back into the working world. But just curious kind of what was kind of that initial motivation to step out.
Yeah, so I think for me, like having kind of priorities set for yourself, there's different stages of life and different seasons of what you can be doing. And so I think for me and my husband, it was like, this is always going to be our first and foremost goal at this time for them, right? Being home with them, being able to be there. And so, and it was a hard time. We were early 20s. We were on one income living in California. I mean, it was not a great financial time, certainly. But it's time that we just knew, like, this is a window of time. This was really important to us, and especially me. And so we just took a step back, and it was like, okay, this is what we're going to focus on now. Now, 10 years later, I look at that and I'm like, I would not have traded that for any amount of money. It was very important to me to be able and be present for them. And I didn't work at all. But then, of course, there comes that transition. And now you look up and they're in school 8 to 3 every day. And you find that you've got some time. And that's where I kind of got back into the world. And luckily I was presented an opportunity that allowed me to take my kids to school and pick them up off the bus. So I always used to joke, like, whether I'm laying in bed napping or whether I'm working, they don't know the difference. And I'm there when they get off the bus. So just making sure that those priorities for us were always in line. And then, like I said, now they're older and they're able to kind of come work alongside of us and see mom and dad working and understand the importance of that. But we do take a lot of time off to be with them. We're close to empty nesting. So it's really like, money can always be made, money can always be had, but time is really just the most precious thing.
Now, let me, or just curious. And I said, I applaud stay-at-home moms. My wife has been that, raising our kids, and we have some younger kids that are in the house, and
Yeah.
she's just starting into that period where they're starting to all get in school and deciding what she's going to do with that, or during that period of life. But so you go through that period of life, you're able to stay at home with the kids, be with them, raise them, and see them grow up. And then walk us through kind of how did you land on the current business you're doing now, as far as, hey, was it intentional? Like, hey, the kids are now in school. What is that business going to be? Or how did you figure out what that was going to look like? And how did you get it started? And was it starting out as just a small time side hustle and grew it into something bigger? Kind of walk us through a little bit of that journey.
So when my executive retired, I kind of was like, well, I'll just become a virtual assistant. Like, I'm not going to find that flexibility again. It's truly why I thought I'll never be an EA again. Most EAs are needed, all the time, round the clock, and that just wasn't going to be in my future. And so once I started that and realized, oh, this is really a need. And I also had a huge network of women and friends that I knew that could really use this for their own life. They were maybe Salesforce managers or had a background in marketing, and they would love to work 5 hours a week while they're home with their kids. Or maybe they're at a stage where they're traveling through the US and they don't want a typical corporate job. So I kind of knew that I had a unique opportunity to bridge both of those. And so that's really what I did, is I just thought, I'm going to flip this. I'm not going to be a virtual assistant. I'm going to spend my time focusing on finding clients, bringing them in, and matching with people that I know have those skill sets, and really bringing the support team for them. So our internal team is around 8 to 9 people currently, and we have relationship managers that manage that for clients. But I don't know that it was really, I didn't sit down and write a vision board of like, here's what the company is going to be. It just kind of naturally grew, because I always say, it's not that I'm a good salesman, I'm just selling help, and every business owner you run into needs help. And we just were unique enough to have that solution for them.
No, it sounds like you found a great niche, and now it provides an opportunity to work with your kids and family, and have that balance that you're looking for. Now, as you made that, said, okay, I'm going to shift over, going to do this, I'm going to start up a business. Walk us through. Was it something that took a while to grow? Was it something that took off from the get-go? Was it something that you were, money was raining down from the skies, or you're teetering around bankruptcy, or kind of as you're getting that started and figuring out, shifting gears in different phases of life, from being at home to now working and or building a business, and going down that route? Kind of how did that initial phase of the business go?
Yeah, so it was extremely rapid growth. So we had to at many moments the first year had to kind of pause and like make sure that we're able to sustain it and serve customers well, and recruit well. So we've traditionally seen anywhere from 20 to 50% year over year growth, depending.
Mm,
So really this year is probably the year that we're like, okay, now what's the next leveling up stage? We're going into our 7th year. And so it's kind of like, okay, what's the next play here? But no, we've always had significant growth. We've used our own business model. So we had a complete fractional team up until last year. I now only have one full-time employee. So I think it's like the secret sauce in growing a business is keeping that labor and revenue tied, even beyond what typical people will say, hey, keep your labor line between 15 and 20%. I'm saying like literally don't bring in that full-time responsibility or that full-time help or even that employment responsibility
mm.
until your business can really sustain it and needs it. Grow slowly, bring in the team fractionally, and you will always stay profitable that way.
No, I think that definitely makes sense and is a great piece of advice. So, well, now as we've kind of reached the present day of the journey, and even and catching up on where you're at now, great time to transition to the 2 questions I always ask towards the end of each episode. So we'll
Yeah.
jump to those now. So the first question I always like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
Ooh, the worst one would probably be not investing in my people sooner. So, which I know sounds crazy because I'm in staffing, but really, there was that point, just like I mentioned, where we were going from fractional to really needing full-time support and really just having the confidence to go ahead and do that. It can be scary, especially when you've been able to tie those numbers so easily to each other, and that really is kind of a safety net. But I wish that I had done that sooner because it is for sure paid off when when it was appropriate for the business.
Hmm. No, sounds or makes sense. Sounds like it was, and that's one that's hard. That as you're staffing, as you're growing, bringing on people too slow, then it slows down the business, and you're not able
Yeah.
to get everything you need to accomplish and done. And you can hold the business back. By the same token, if you bring people on too fast, and now you're burdening the business with more obligations, more people to support. You may not always have the consistency of the work, and or you may not be ready or at that stage of the business. So it's always kind of that balance. And I think it's
It is.
hard, or it's one that's hard that you can make a mistake either way, but either way you get to learn kind of what's the balance you need for the business. So I think it's a great easy mistake to make, but a great one to learn from.
Absolutely.
Second question now that I like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you give them?
Well, I mean, this seems self-serving, but definitely go fractional. I mean, I think so many people think that, and I'll go beyond that so it doesn't sound self-serving. Don't think that you have to invent the entire corporate structure getting started out. Like you just need a client. You don't need a fancy business card. You don't need fancy name tags. You don't need rent in some places. It's like just get your first client, focus on that, focus on the client experience, get that really fine-tuned, make sure that you have even a product or one thing that we found when we first started is what we thought we were going to go after. And once we really got out in the marketplace, like it got adjusted. So get out
Hmm.
and talk to people, tell them what you think that you're solving and what problem it is that you're solving, and see if that's even a problem that's really neat or really out there. So I think doing your homework and just making sure that you scale affordably, and don't think that you've got to have everything to impress everyone. You just need one client and it will go from there.
No, I think that's definitely a great piece of advice and a great takeaway. So,
I
well, that
saw a
was
guy recently. Oh, sorry. I was talking to this guy recently, he just started out, showed me his website. And when I was looking on the website, he had a whole page dedicated to swag for his business. A company that's been around 30 days. It's just a consulting company. Nobody's going to be that dire over the swag. And I thought, how much inventory have you invested in getting hats and t-shirts and beach towels and all these things? And so don't jump to that level. Like get your first client and focus on that.
No, I think that's a great piece of advice, great takeaway. And sometimes it is easy to get distracted, and it can be everything from, hey, what is the name of the company, or I need to have the perfect logo, or I need to have the greatest URL, or I need to have the great catchphrase, or I need to have the perfect video, or whatever it is. And not saying that you don't want to work on those things as you go along, But to your point, I think that, getting that customer, getting the income, getting the business up and going, making it profitable should be the focus. And some of those other things that, may be fun or may be exciting or you may enjoy, do along the way, or you can do as time allows. But I think to keep that focus is definitely a great piece of advice.
Absolutely.
So now as we wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, so if they want to go to our site, it's bosun, BOSUN, solutions.com. And you can contact us on there. We'd love to give any of your listeners half off their onboarding. So when they get started with us, we do a discovery call and make sure we essentially build out a job description for even your fractional support, because we really want to make sure that we're getting you long-term fits. So I'd love to offer that to your listeners.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage the listeners to take advantage of that and support a great business. And if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again, Nicole, for coming on the podcast. It's fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review, helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And on that note, if you ever need help with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Nicole, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks so much, Devin. It's great to be here.